Good morning, everybody. Sorry I'm a little bit late this morning. Um, my Facebook feed has changed to the new version, the new friendly version. My word, I can't work it out. It's taken me 15 minutes just to work out how to do a live stream. Um, so I'm a bit stressed this morning now. Blimey. It's supposed to make it easy and they've changed everything. I can't find out how to do it. So I've managed to do it now. Whether I'll remember for the class this afternoon, I don't know. What a palaver. I've been so stressed about this that I've forgotten what colours I've said. Burnt sienna, ultramarine and white, and lemon yellow. Is it? Let me just check. Morning Louise, morning Janice. I'm not enjoying the new Facebook. I'm using just some craft card. I'm just quickly jumping on to see, just to double check the colours that I said this morning. Burnt sienna, ultramarine, white, yellow ochre, lemon yellow. That's the one I was missing. What a day. So just as I was ready to pounce on my lesson this morning, Facebook just totally changed and updated itself on the laptop. Morning, Nick. Well, what a liberty. So I've chosen the craft card just because it's already got a darker a base. This is craft card rather than the paint on card. You've got, what brown have you got? You got burnt umber, Nick. Just add a tiny bit of cadmium red to burnt umber. But burnt umber would work just fine, really. But he is more of a reddish. I mean, technically, you could. Oh, Nick, you could mix white gouache with burnt sienna paint. That would work. I'm going to add a tiny little bit of crimson, just a pinhead of crimson, just for the inside of his ears. You don't need much with gouache, that's the... Yeah, so if you've got white gouache and burnt sienna watercolour, you should be fine. You should be fine. Look at me trying to be organised. I'm going to put that tile there. So as usual, I will give you 10 to 15 minutes. Good morning, Janet. Nice to see you. I'll give you 10 to 15 minutes to sketch him out. Well, there's not a lot to sketch out, but I do like it. I do like baby rabbits. They're cute, aren't they? Have they got a name, a baby rabbit? I know a baby hare is a leveret, isn't it? What is a baby rabbit called? Let me Google that. It's got to have a name, hasn't it? See if I can Google it faster than you can tell me. What is a baby rabbit called? Kittens! Baby rabbits are called kittens and baby hares are leverets. Well, there we go. Let's get some music on. So I've got a rep here as well this morning. And he wasn't supposed to come till turn 10, between 10 and half past, and he arrived at 20 to 10. So had a chat to him, got him set up with a coffee while we're waiting for Jackie to come, because Jackie's dealing with him this morning. So he's chilling downstairs with a coffee while I was trying to click out any button and find out how to. Honestly, this new Facebook feed is just bizarre. Oh, I know why. My laptop didn't update last night. That's why everything's all over the place. Honestly, the laptop's had like 9 updates over the last week or so. All bizarre. I don't know why I have to keep changing things all the time, eh? We don't want it. So when you're drawn, just let me know you have drawn. But as I say, I've used craft card. Looks a bit pink on there, but it's not. But if you're on white paper, that's just as well. I am going to put a bit of green. Oh, and there is a bit of pink in the flowers, isn't there? There's those little buds of things, and that'd be quite nice. Lovely to have 4 of you with me this morning. Oh, well, there we go. That's fine then. Yeah, I've got a massive box of my Winsor & Newton gouache. Most of it are all the same colours that I grab. I've got cadmium free, cadmium yellow and red, and I've got normal cadmium yellow and cadmium red. I've just got lots of, because I do so many animal portraits. It's nearly all browns, ochres, umbers and siennas. I've just got hundreds of them, so it's quite nice to just to have a nice basic palette. Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Nick. I'll give it till 1:15 anyway. That's fine. I know Phil can't do Thursdays anymore, or he won't be anyway, because he's having to change work shift. I think he posted on here the other day, so we'll be have a few different people. But that's what these classes are like, aren't they? People come and people go, and people change from one class to another, and people go on a Monday night, or they do a Thursday, and then they do a switch to Wednesdays. It's really cool. It's all about the versatility, isn't it? And my hay fever's quite bad on my throat. How's yours this morning, Nick? Mine's super bad today. Oh, that's all right, Louise. Um, what have you got? What brand is it? Well, all it is it will be that that the paint separates. What I anybody that uses any tube of any kind, what I recommend is that obviously when it's on our shelf, it hangs upright, so it hangs, from the lid, and the pigment is always heavier than the binder. Mostly in a lot of the paints, the suspension is off kilter after it's been hanging for a while. So what I say is, when you get it home, turn your paint upside down on the um, on the lid if it can balance, and that helps redistribute the pigment and the binder, the suspension. So if you've had it in a box for ages, laid flat like that, every now and again, just turn them over, and that redistributes the pigment and the suspension in the with the binder. So I wouldn't worry too much about it at all. Um, it can all be mixed together. It's the same as on my tile. I've got a new tile today because I've got my um, pet portrait tile, which is an absolute mess, and I thought that would cause more confusion. Um, Thank you, Janice. Um, but obviously they stay on your. I keep my gouache um, even hard on here. But what I find really interesting with gouache is that there are some colours that won't stick to the tile when it's dry. They flake right off. So I have to just dab a bit of water on them every now and again to make them right. But obviously you could use acrylics today, that's fine. And I know some of you will be using acrylics. I've got a selection of my miniature painting brushes and an old manky flat brush, which is good for fur. I just had a lady yesterday afternoon collect a painting that I did of their dog, gorgeous little dog. It's a quick turnaround. Can't post it yet though, because I don't know when he's being gifted it. It's all good. Do you know what? This morning I had to, again, because of all the roadworks over the motorway, I'm having to go through all the villages. So I'm going from Wardington to Williamscott to Cropredy to Hanwell, and then into town in the back way. It can take up to 30 minutes, for 45 minutes. I used to get here when I used to travel in from the West Midlands every day when I was manager of Paperway. I used to be able to do that in an hour. So it's, to travel 6 miles is taking me almost as long as it would when travelling in from the from near Stourbridge way. Madness, absolute madness. I've just checked Google Traffic, and the whole road, the whole motorway junction up to Middleton Cheney, right the way down to Hennef Way, is still heavy traffic, and all of the Southern Road to Three Pigeons is all red. It's not even amber, it's all red, which means quite congested. And that's a lot. I'm going to zoom in on his eye, because we'll do his eye first. We always feel better when there's an eye in place. You've got multiple voices coming through. How have you managed that, Janice? There's only me here. Janet, sorry. Are you getting it? So is that so you can get even more information, so you won't miss any of it? Or is it driving you mad? Just one of me talking is enough to drive some people mad, so goodness knows if you've got several of me talking to you at different stages. Might need to turn your volume down a bit, maybe? I don't know. because I've only got the one microphone working today. Right, so I'm going to mix my burnt sienna. I'm using a thin brush, burnt sienna and a tiny amount of ultramarine to make a darker brown, because his eye is quite a dark brown colour. So if you've got burnt umber, even accidentally, use some of that to start with, and then I'm going to just paint almost his eye there, like that. Now, because I'm using craft card, I'm going to have to be careful how much water I use, because it will spread. I'm going to go a little bit darker, so a little bit more ultramarine. Just for the upper part of the eye. I don't think I've ever painted on craft paper before. I like to push myself, as you know. Then I want to make, I could have said let's use black. That's too easy, isn't it? I want to keep the colours to a minimum, so if I go with burnt sienna and a lot of ultramarine, it should give me a near black. But to be honest, if it does spread and feather, it'll just look like fur and feathers, so it'll be all right. And I'm going to use the black to do his eye outline, his eyelid. I did watch, it must have been last year on Netflix, there's a new version of a mini series of Watership Down, because I loved Watership Down as a kid. My favourite bit though was the seagull, because it swore. I used to love that, with the swearing seagull. But there you go, that says a lot about me, doesn't it? Let that dry. I want to get his eye in, because once you've got the eye in, you can automatically feel a little bit happier that it's going to look like an animal. Whether it'll be a rabbit or not's another matter, but it'll look like an animal, I'm sure. And I don't want to make it really hard for you, because it is art for the anxious. And I'm really tired today with my hay fever. So if I go with a little bit of white, really runny white, I should be able just to do a little line. Now don't forget, with gouache and acrylic, the white sinks in a little bit. This is titanium white, well, permanent white in acrylics, or titanium white in permanent white in gouache, titanium white in acrylics. It looks like he's going to cry now. Oh, don't cry, little rabbit. It'll be okay. But it's nice, isn't it? Putting that wash of white in the lower part of the eye really helps. Make it glisten or give it that sort of glow and look. Now it's like this area of the highlight is slightly diluted. Now if you notice, because we've mixed the black out of blue and brown, it's given me that bit of a blue glow, which actually the highlight really does have. So to strengthen the light just on his eye a fraction and on his upper eye. This is the one bit that we'll fiddle with, the rest of it we won't be fiddling. Right, I'll be using bigger brushes for the rest of it now. Oh, it's just, should we just finish there now? Should we just leave that? Because that's a nice eye, isn't it? I'll give you till 25 past just in case, because obviously I'm sort of working blind at the moment, because I can't tell. With things like this, so if we go at a more generic speed, hopefully I won't leave any of you behind. Because I'll be going into sort of a bit of yellow ochre and white for the next bit, which basically is a way a lot of companies make Naples Yellow Deep, and it's definitely how Winsor and Newton make Naples Yellow Deep, because I read it in a book. So I'm just going to do this yellow ochre and white around his eye. I'm going to stay zoomed in because we're working on his face, aren't we? Now I don't know if I've got this too watery and it's just going to absorb itself. Little short strokes. Try to follow the angle of the fur. I don't know if you've got it printed out or if you're just looking at the ones that I've got. This is actually quite a similar colour to the craft card, isn't it? A little bit on the edge of his nose, coming down. And flitting. Just trying to look at where the little lighter flicks are. It'll sink into the background anyway, so it won't be as in your face. Look at that one there. Well, about 2 minutes apart. That's perfect, isn't it? Because that's usually the length of time that people would say. Can you say that again, please? You've got a built-in confirmation of colours and shapes. But I bet it's annoying. I'd be annoyed, but then I'm annoyed about most things, aren't I, to be fair? I think I have got this quite dilute. But that's alright. I've forgotten the actual, there's some white bits, isn't there? I've missed off the white bits, but we'll put those in later. I don't want to go mad with his eyebrow area, because he'll end up looking like Dennis Healy. Do you remember him? That politician with the wild eyebrows. So we'll play around with this ochre colour. I mean, you could do the rest of his body as well. You know, if you work quick, it means you can do lots of little short strokes. So the quicker you go, the better. All you need to think about is, let me zoom out just a fraction. All you need to think about is the angle. But you can see here how quickly I'm working, because time just goes so fast, doesn't it, that I'd love to spend hours and hours on stuff. And you know, in my commissions I do have that privilege of being able to do that. Oh no, is he crying? This is yellow ochre and white. Might end up looking a bit illustrative at the moment. Like he comes from Farthing Wood or Watership Down, some sort of novel. It all helps build the texture, but you can see why I'm using this sort of craft card. It's all the rage now, craft card. If I was going to sell this painting, I wouldn't sell it for millions of pounds, because craft card doesn't really, it's like cardboard, it doesn't last forever. Mind you, none of my paintings are that expensive, so they're not made for people to pass down through their generations of family. I'm going with a lot more white at the minute, because I do want to do, oh, it's a bit too runny there, look, you can see it looks like he's got a milk moustache now. So a little bit more white on the eye there, a little bit on his little diamond at the top. Can't see his little fluffy tail in this, can we? So we need to amend that at some point. But it's quite nice to build up colours. So add a bit more white to your yellow ochre if you want slightly lighter bits. So just play around with the yellow ochre and the white mix. See how you get on with it, because with gouache particularly, when it deadens and flattens and dries, it can look quite different. This is going to be, those of you that are doing the masterclass in September, doing the hair on the wooden panel, this is a really good preview for you. I'm just realising that you've decided to do this lesson today then. It's nice. Because you can see how the colours that I put in originally have really faded, so adding this little bit more white to it should help. See, it's hard, isn't it, when you're doing a class, even when you're like me and you're teaching a class, there's so much I want to tell you and so much I want you to do, but also I'm at war with the fact that I don't want you to rush and I want you to enjoy it. I could do with making all of my classes 6 hours long. I haven't got enough hours in the day for that. Right. He's coming on in some form. May not be the form that we want, but it's what we've got. It's always as well the hard decision between how much water, how much paint, because you need enough water to make it fluid, don't you, but not too much to make it really runny. So I haven't changed colour. I am playing around with different quantities of white and ochre. So for those of you that use gouache, you'll know that it dries in a different way to both watercolour and acrylics. It dries more like emulsion, so the colour that you put on isn't the colour that you see. Whereas with watercolour it dries 30% lighter. Gouache, I don't know what they if there's an equation for how it dries, but it dries chalkier, flatter, darker and more matte. So in that respect it is very much like emulsion paint because of the chalk that's in it. It gives it that sort of effect. I've got his feet. Let's put a little bit down here. We can cover up some of the feet. If it all goes wrong, we'll just put lots of flowers and leaves. A massive leaf going right up there like that. I'll probably move on to a slightly different colour in a minute. So maybe if I go with a bit of yellow ochre and a little bit of burnt sienna, so it warms it up a little bit, and a tiny bit of white, not too much because it'll go a bit pinkish. So it's sort of a honey colour, I guess. It would help if you could see the palette, wouldn't it? It still hasn't helped. Oh, you can see it on the lower left one. Because that's sort of going to be the nose area. It's knowing that it will dry darker than the colour that's on the palette, you see. With acrylics, you've still got the advantage that it won't. It dries the colour that you see. There's no colour shift. I kind of like... well, you get used to it, don't you? You get used to everything that you've been using for a while in terms of how the colours change. I mean, there's a lot more to do on the nose. A lot more to do on all of it, really. But you can see by using a slightly darker brown base as I have, even if I got fed up and decided not to do it anymore, it still looks like a rabbit, and I'll just go, oh, it's just a little loose sketch. I was just trying out. As I've said to all of you before, the main thing about being an artist is being able to excuse your way out of everything. Don't use much of this honey colour. It is more focused around the eyes and little muzzle. I'm trying to put that in between. But you can see how dark it's actually coming on here. But what it does mean I can do is that if I go, oh, I've got too much of this honey colour now, when it dries I can just paint over it. It's no biggie. And that's what, you know, the aim is with all of our classes, is just to make you feel not, I don't want to make you stressed, obviously, that's just a bonus, but if it's to make you feel that it's okay, it's all okay. There's always a remedy, there's always an action, there's always something we can do to try and make it better. But if it's your first time with something, don't beat yourself up about it. There's enough badness in the world to save worrying about, oh my goodness, I added a bit too much brown. You know? You can see how the colour shift changes. Yeah, what it is with the linen, Louise, is it's got a really shiny, clear sealant on it, so it helps the paint move across. But yes, it is hard initially to get the hang of how much water and paint to add and all of that kind of stuff to make it feel like it's working as you want it to. Try a bit less water is what I'm going to say. This is just the yellow ochre and white again. I'm just going back over some of the colours. Because if it's too watery, it might be that it's spreading it. It's been a while since I painted on a linen canvas. I did it in acrylics, I think. Oh, I tell you what I did on a linen one. I did a portrait of the Queen a while ago, but I also, on a little mini one, did a portrait of my mum, which is on the wall behind the shop's counter. And yeah, it's very smooth, the paint on, but absolutely is It's the because it's not gesso that they use as such. It's a different sort of primer. We'll put some darker ones in as well. But maybe I'll do. Let me stop there for a minute. And I'm gonna sort of do the pinky ear bits next, I think, and then we can coffee break and then do the darker bits. Just had to escape for a second, sorry about that. Right, so I'm going to look at doing the Now if I use the crimson on its own, that's far too bright, so I will add a little bit of burnt sienna in there. Now this might be too dark because it's mixing with the brown, so this is the crimson just in this ear. Let's add a tiny bit of white to it. It's a bit better. I don't want it to stand out too much though, you know. But that doesn't look very pink at all. Let me add a bit more white to it, because as we know, it'll dull down. I suppose it needs to come on this bit as well, and then I put some more fur on that. So even though we're working in gouache and that kind of thing, you still want to build up the layers and change it a little bit, and see how you get. And I might use a little bit of the yellow ochre and white, just to give me little tints of colour just on here. It's all about layers, isn't it? It can be quite relaxing, especially when you're just using a colour, and you can you know, just be very repetitive with your strokes, the shape, the length, that kind of thing. I'm going to not do too much around this neck area, because it's going to be darker to start with, and darker underneath rather. Then we need to put the lights over the top. At the moment it looks a little bit odd because the eye is the darkest part on there, and we haven't got any darks anywhere else, so we will be making some darker brown areas in. Before I do coffee, I am just going to go in with burnt sienna and a little bit of ultramarine, because there is a few little darker flecks in here that are slightly a richer brown. That aren't sort of the black or umbery browns. So this is all the slightly warmer brown. It's almost burnt sienna by itself. There's just a tiny smidge of ultramarine in there. You can see it's starting to add a bit more depth and body to our little bunny. Might use a little bit of this just in his ear. I will go a little bit darker underneath here, because then we can, you see, you can't always tell about your lights until the darks are in. And I know I've said that to you before. So we've put lights on, put light on that. We put the lights on, but you don't always know until the darker tones start going in just how much light you need to add on top, or where there might be some darker patination in the face or body. So as I say, this is largely burnt sienna with just a little bit of ultramarine, just a pinhead of it, just to dull it down a little. We'll use this as our base to help us with the shapes of the darks, and just to know where everything goes. Don't fill everything. I should really probably be using a thinner brush, but then that means it won't hold as much paint, and it'll take me a lot longer. I mean, there's no mad rush at all, so don't feel that you've got to plough through this and ruin what you've got. Not at all. But sometimes you need to get quite a bit in and then realise. The background stuff, we're just going to do some light washes of greens and things, so that's not really a biggie. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on the background. Maybe a couple of pinky flowers and some blades of grass and a leaf just to set him in, but I don't really want to do much at all. I honestly, you know, when I were young, when I were allowed, and I started being an artist, everything I painted was landscapes, mountains and trees, very much as I paint now. But I never ever imagined in a million years that I would get so much pleasure from painting animals, because it's not really a thing that I ever thought about. I knew loads of animal painters growing up. Many of them I saw how I've forgotten her name, Caroline somebody back in the West Midlands. She made the most stunning pastel paintings of horses. Just stunning. They were lifelike, and she was at times very lucrative, but then at other times she had to get a job as a cleaner and all that kind of thing. I often wonder how she is. I can't remember her last name either, but I remember when I was sort of like 17, 18 and taking up art, there were quite a lot of people who I'd meet on a weekly basis, either in the shop that I worked at or at exhibitions and things. Um, and I never thought that animal painting would be my thing, because I did trees and stuff. And I do still love doing trees. However, there's something about gouache and an animal painting that just really relaxes me. That said, a nice old crumbly oak tree or something with a nice gnarly bark, I think I just enjoy art, don't I? I don't know what I'm talking about. I just enjoy painting anything really, but I do love animal art. Still don't want to be like a photo realist though. Never want to be like that. I don't think I could be. I haven't got the patience. Oh, I've been that carried away. It should be coffee break time, but I'll just finish this one colour off, which is the burnt sienna with a tiny bit of ultramarine. And then we'll go with the sort of bluey black colour in there, and that should really help get shape and depth in there even more so. You can see now how the darks are on, how much more solid he's looking, but it's the really dark bits. The same, almost a blacky brown, so that it'll be ultramarine, a lot of ultramarine with burnt sienna now to put the darks in. Then I'll put a few more lights over the top of it, then mix up some sort of scribbly greeny colour. I didn't squeeze any lemon yellow out, did I, on my palette? Well, that's all right. So yeah, I'd stop for a minute, grab the kettle. I'll make Jackie a cuppa as well, because I'm nice like that. And grab yourself a drink, and then we can crack on. I mean, technically, I know this lesson's we can go up to 12:30, but I do like to. I do feel that the online classes do run a little bit quicker than the real life class, but we've got all that option. So I'll be back shortly. Right, I am back. No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't rush. I keep saying don't rush. It's me that's got the time constraints, not you. But don't forget though, Nick, because you're using gouache, um, really you can. It doesn't really matter about the brushstrokes, the majority of the brushstrokes on here, because you can go back straight back over the top of them again, um, and change how it looks very very quickly and very very easily. So it's not always a done deal with this kind of thing, especially with such a limited palette. So I'm going with a lot more ultramarine in my burnt sienna now. So it's a black brown, quite a cool colour. Little dots instead of flicks for shorter hair. I've noticed I actually flick downwards quite a lot of the time. I don't always flick up because I've got a finer brush and I'm not hardly using any pressure. So I'm sort of sculpting the eyebrow area again. Maybe put the odd bit of dark. But because I'm sort of jumping around, because it's a rabbit painting, I'm covering up a lot of the brushstrokes that were there, but even if the brushstrokes are going in the wrong way or they're the wrong length, at this point, that's fine because you can then start adding in the darker ones over the top of some of them, and then you put some lighter ones the right length or the right shape or the right direction over the top. It would spend time if you've got a pet, any pet, stroke it a lot because it's nice, but also it soothes you, but also it helps you look at the direction of the fur because you always stroke it in the direction that the fur grows. It's very rare, unless you're sort of like ruffling hair, or really if you've got a cat and you really want to get bitten, you very rarely stroke away from the growth of the hair. So imagine you are, by stroking an animal, you'll get a better understanding of the direction of the fur. A lot easier than studying books or whatever, because then when you're painting an animal, you just imagine that it's how it would be if you were stroking the animal. And that should help. But you see I'm painting over loads of this that we've done, and it isn't sort of a waste of time because each fur line that we've painted helps build the depth and the layers up of the coat. If we only did one layer, it could look quite flat, but by putting lots and lots and lots of other layers over the top, it brings it forward and makes it more solid. But I know you're all getting really adept now with your gouache, Nick. So I have no thoughts that you won't be able to rectify any issues. So that's a bit too brown, need more blue in that. That's better. So we're going to keep going with fur until at least 11:30. So do not feel that you have to rush, because we've got loads of time. But also I have to do it a little bit faster, don't I? Because if I'm behind you, then nobody's going to know what to do next. But you can see hopefully how that dark's really helping. I'll probably do nearly all of it with this. What's this? This is actually a number 2 brush. Believe it or not, number 2. And you can see the rabbit. Actually, I think the rabbit's quite life-size. I didn't want to do him too big because of the time, although sometimes the bigger you do it, the easier it is, as I say before. Because you're not bogged down with the fiddly bits. But hopefully as well you can see how that eye that stood out so much at the start is slowly being absorbed into the rest of the painting, which is how it should be. Don't forget, this Saturday is our free paint-along online class of A Crashing Wave. The reference photo is there. I'll put a bit more detail about it all today at some point. And I haven't checked how many people have said they're interested in it. I haven't even promoted it as an event, so it'll be interesting to see how popular this one is. Oh, 631 people are interested or going. That's phenomenal. No pressure for me then. In an hour and a half. Why do I do it? So this isn't black, it's a near black, which is quite a blue colour really. And I should definitely be using a shorter, thinner brush. Do I ever learn? No I don't. Will I be annoyed that the brush strokes are clumpy? Yes, I will. Will I change it? No. definitely need to highlight a little bit more on his body there. Definitely. So it's coming up to 20 past 11. But you see, I'm once I've got the direction and the length right, you can see I'm just sort of jabbing. It helps to not think about it too much, like with everything else, isn't it? Like with clouds and skies and mountains and all that jazz. Well, I've just caught a glimpse of him on the screen. He looks really cute. God, I'm good at this. I reckon we'll have a lot of people joining in on this one after I post a picture of it. Just keep it repetitive, keep it simple. Don't stress about it. I think you do have to be in the right headspace to do pets or animal portraiture of any kind. Because it's so easy to... You have to sort of get in the zone of it. How's it going? That's slow. Arduous. I need to go a little bit darker underneath there. And then I'll do some lighter ochre whitey colours just to overlay. Because not all of the white hairs are or creamy hair colour is underneath, sometimes it's on the top. Now if I'd have chosen a a darker background, I would only have to have done the light tones. Right, I'm gonna stop for a sec, and then I'll go and mix more more yellow ochre and white for some lighter highlights, especially on the line of his. At the moment, I've got his shoulders in front of his face, which would never happen. I'm just having a swig of my tea. Guessing you're all engrossed in detail at the moment. And that's nice. And you can see how much more solid it can make things. Thank you. It's taken a long time to build up. And also, because it's hair, fur, hair, doesn't matter which, remember that you want it to be more haphazard, because he's not going to have had a haircut. So make some flick in a slightly different direction, make some a little bit longer, make some a little bit wirier, because that's what will make it look individual and unique, even though it's just a little bebe. And again, just play around with the yellow ochre and white mixes to see what's the best tone, or where to stick other lighter colours in here. Don't leave it all for the darks, because obviously if you put some of the other colours back over the darks again, that's fine, because it will make it look, like I've said, like little lots and lots of fur layers, which is what you're after. Sort of like that. He has got a whisker as well, hasn't he? That you can clearly see just 2 whiskers. So I'm switching to a thinner brush and some white. You could use a gel pen though, so if you can't get the lines thin enough, the whiter lines, just use a gel pen, that's no problem at all.
Do you have that chap's card to hand that I can borrow back?
Steve's?
Yeah, to add something to the order that somebody literally came in seconds later.
Oh, yeah, of course.
That I didn't have. Thank you.
So, I didn't squeeze out any lemon, did I? So I'm just going to put a bit of lemon out for the green area, and I'm only going to do the green sort of on the front and to the side, and it's not going to be much. I want it to be a bit of a vinaigrette. So keep building up the colours. I mean, you might find that you need to add a bit more white in the eye. I'm going to zoom in a little bit more just so you can see that it's not as good as it looks. See, lots of little flicks. You can still see the undercolour underneath quite strongly. So this is it, like, as I see it. And as you see, everything looks better from a distance, doesn't it? Everything always looks better from a distance. Let me just zoom out just a fraction. See, in doing that, I've seen other areas that I need to change a little bit or add. I mean, the whole lesson today is mainly the rabbit, but I think it does have to sit in a little environment. See, in watercolours this would be tricky because, I mean, we've done them in watercolour, but you'd have to leave out where the grass is going to be, paint the grass and then, or paint negatively around it, which is fine, but I think if we can get out without doing that today, which we don't need to in gouache, that's even better, isn't it? Lost his little diamond on his head. So I'm just spending a little bit more time, because I know I am quicker at you than it, because it's kind of what I do for a job, isn't it? So it is a bit speedier, and because I can't see how anybody else is doing it, it's a bit harder for me to gauge how to move on. But because all the colours are very similar and you need to constantly change between the lights and the darks and all of that, it shouldn't really be a big thing. So I'm just looking at his patination a little bit more. So in about 5-10 minutes I'm going to work on the grassy bits, but I don't want to rush you. We're doing a ladybird on forget-me-not in watercolour this afternoon. It's another day gone. And then tonight it's a talk on Dadaism on Discord. To make sure I've got everything ready for that. A catastrophe last month, but fun. I'm going to have to re-familiarise myself again with the new layout of Facebook so I can work out how to live stream my class this afternoon. Hopefully you're enjoying it. You're very quiet, but I'm presuming that's down to concentration. Oh, I've still got the projector on, Jackie, because I want to to see how big the reference image looks on the screen.
Do you want me to look at it?
No, on here.
Oh, okay.
If I use that, because obviously I won't need to print out photocopies for everyone necessarily. Because I was looking when I'm thinking about when the classroom reopens next year, I'm still going to post the reference image hours beforehand,
Yeah.
so people can sketch it out. That's big enough, isn't it? That whole screen. Sit over on the back row and have a look. You can still see everything I'm doing. And is the reference, the photo reference big enough? Yeah, I guess it is. Is it out of focus to you?
No.
Okay. So, like with the fair, I'm going to do some darker blades of grass and then some lighter blades of grass over the top. So stuff like leaves and grass, and then the pinky flowers, which I'll do in a darker pink, then a lighter pink. I might need a bit more crimson actually. I only did enough for his ears. Where did I put that? Yeah, we're still keeping the classroom closed for the rest of this year, especially in the news yesterday where Northampton is now the largest hotspot of COVID cases in England. I mean, that's our next town, isn't it? Our next big major town to Banbury. So I don't feel comfortable in opening things up here. While we've got a high spike in neighbouring towns, so I think the sensible option is to keep the classroom closed, to be honest, and not plan. And then hopefully by January we'll know a little bit more about the virus and know how to keep everyone safe in a small environment like this, without having to, encase you in plastic and fabric masks throughout the duration of the class, which I don't think takes the fun out of it, doesn't it? But it is something that we're keeping an eye on. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the grassy bit now, but if you're not ready to do that, that's fine. Let me go with lemon yellow. Let me pivot my tile so you can see what I'm doing. Go with lemon yellow and a bit of ultramarine. Want a slightly darker green. Now don't forget it will go darker anyway. And just sort of needs to feel like he's in amongst it.
There's lots of people saying it's a disaster in the room. There's been some dramas with this press and
Yes. Yeah, Louise is working on a linen canvas, but it's clear. It's got that really
That clear
clear
primer.
gesso on, and it does make it. If you're doing if it's quite water based, it can repel. It's lovely to work on, but it's getting that skill of well, not a skill. It's just knowing how much water and paint to add.
Yeah.
So I'm doing this a
Even
little
paint
bit
than
dark,
paint.
a little bit bluer as I get around the base of the bunny. And then I'm actually going to sort of go with really dilute version of this to do some almost non-existent
I don't believe that NYX is terrible though.
I don't believe NYX is terrible.
It's never terrible.
It's probably not as fiddly as he'd have liked though, so I understand the frustration. So I want this to sort of, if you notice, it's sort of fading out. This is what I mean by a vignette, where it's you've got a concentration of colour and shape, and then as you move your way out of the image, it gets softer and fadey and fadish. And when that dries, that's the wet paper that's going to look that dark, but the actual paint itself will just give a nice chalky hue.
That's lovely.
And then we'll do some stronger, more vivid grass and a couple of those little pinky flowery things.
That's so cute.
He is cute. I've got trawled through loads of images of baby bunnies
Mr. Bunbo.
this morning.
Cute.
Because the image I was going to do, well, because of all the traffic, and it now takes me nearly half an hour to 45 minutes to get into work at the moment, I ended up posting the reference images at home, so I didn't have my laptop with me. So it gives a different coloration or a different animal than one I would have. It's still going to be a bunny, obviously, but it's not necessarily the one that I had in mind to do today. But I prefer this one better. So I might get the hairdryer on this in a sec, just so you can. I mean, if you can't do the ladybird this afternoon, Louise, don't forget you can always do it. It'll be repeated on Monday night, or again on a Friday, in about 12 weeks' time. Works out. I know it's around about 12 weeks because the start of lockdown, we did certain things on a Monday and a Thursday, and then it was July before we were doing it.
At the end of lockdown.
Yeah.
We can catch it.
But you can watch it. You can watch it back. Absolutely. This is what I love about these online classes. You know, if I was me, well, I am me. But I mean, if I was a student rather than a teacher, I think I would probably only do online classes, because I've got the scope to dip in and dip out, and I can, like I know we've got many students doing. They do their binge watching on a weekend. So if they've got a weekend with nothing to do, then they'll binge watch the artery lessons. Oh, I forgot last night to post the bite-sized lesson because I can't schedule post it, so I totally forgot. So I posted it this morning. But it's basically all about the 3 brushes that I use, and what marks and patterns you can get just out of those 3 brushes. Let's go in with a sort of wishy-washy background here. So it's green, but not that green. It's there, but not there. Nearly got political for a second. Shouldn't do that. It was funny, but I won't. Right, when that dries, let me zoom out just a fraction more so you can see the what I mean by a vignette. In fact, Anne from Yorkshire, not Northern Anne from Yorkshire, on the drawing classes, does wonderful vignettes in pencil. The squirrel up a tree yesterday was a lovely one that she did, where she fades everything around the edge. Right, let me just blast this with a hairdryer, just so you can see how it dries. And then I'm going to do more lemon yellow, slightly more vibrant grass in front to give us a bit of layer, and then I'll do the pinky whatnot one. I do enjoy paint. I really enjoy painting animals, if I'm honest. It's my most favourite thing to do in the world now, which, as I said to you earlier, is a bit weird. But then I enjoy doing the squirrel. And I didn't get chance yesterday to, because I work late until sort of like 9, half 9 on Mondays, Tuesdays and Thursdays at the moment. So Wednesdays, when the class finishes, the shop finishes at 4, so I just want to escape and go home. And that's what I did. But I forgot I was going to look at doing a coloured wash on the squirrel. But what I might do instead is photocopy the drawing of the squirrel and then do a wash on top of that. So I've added a lot more lemon and a little bit of white. And this is where I'm going to add more leaves. Now this looks a little bit psychedelic, and I'm aware of that. But I'm going to trust in the process that it will dull down a fraction. I hope it will. Oh God. And for some of the leaves, I'm just tapping the base into the bottom of the page a little bit. But this is still the number. Oh, this is number 2 brush I've picked up now. Apologies, I forgot to tell you.
Picture of its brother.
Who?
My mum's just on a walk and she's found its brother on the walk.
Oh yes, have you just sent her the photograph of the class?
Yeah, the picture of that. It's a bit of a coincidence,
That
isn't it?
isn't it?
That's his brother at Draycott Water.
So you can see how it it's just quite nice to do little. I'm not going to do too much around the edges. And obviously, like with watercolour, the more water you add to a paint, the more transparent it becomes. So do allow for that. And the more white you add to a paint, the more opaque that becomes. Doesn't necessarily mean it will be much paler when it dries, because obviously in terms of gouache, we know it dries more matte. I did say, for those of you that haven't got gouache and you don't know if you want to buy a set or anything, the best thing that you can do is actually just buy a tube of white gouache, and you can then add to your white gouache to your normal watercolours, and you can make gouache, because that's how they used to do it a long time ago. I can still remember the music used to make me smile. Maybe I'll just do a few little dilute ones just in the background of this lighter green, because then if I do some misty, watery grasses of flowers or something, it'll still be there with the pinks. You know, I do feel in regards to the online classes, I wish I'd done this sooner, because we've had all of this set up for 2 years, haven't we, Jackie?
Yeah.
2 years we've had all of this in place, because of Kevin. Hello, Kevin, when you watch this. Obviously, because he was often away with work all over the world, we set these up for him. I'm just using a bit more brown at the moment because I just want to darken the back of the rabbit. And we set it all up for that purpose. So we've had this for such a long time, yet did nothing with it, other than when Kevin needed the lessons, or to join in or see what we were doing from afar. And I do wish I'd done it sooner. I do. But you can't live in the past, can you? We've got to deal with what we've got. So it is what it is. If I mix a tiny bit of white with crimson, I can do these little flowers, and then I will do some white bits over the top of, well, white and pink over the top of them, so it looks more like the picture, and it gives a little bit of solidity. Now, I said if I dilute some of this, I can do some distant ones in the misty bit. Louise, I bet yours is going to look lovely. There's almost two in a row this week, isn't it? And the squirrel, where we've done pictures that you probably like to work with. And Janice, I suppose, because you like your animals, your hair and that kind of thing. So maybe. And as I say, when we do the hair painting class, I just want to put a slight highlight of pink there in the ear. We'll be kind of doing, it won't be because it's a baby rabbit anyway, but when we do the hair on wood, that's when it'll be a nice lesson, because obviously it will just be 5 hours of this. There won't be, I don't know what the background will be. It's going to be on wood anyway, but I think it'd be nice to have a little bit of ground, which I don't always do with the animal portraits, especially pet portraits. I tend not to do backgrounds with them. And there's no particular reason why. I just don't. But I know, Louise, you're getting a lot of the online classes. But that said, a lot of my regular students who would always come on, I don't know, let's say every Thursday afternoon, or ones that I used to do the odd arty party for, or what have you, they're finding that because the online classes are a lot cheaper, they're able to access 3 classes for the price of the one that they'd normally come to. So they're trying drawing, and they found out that they actually love drawing, which they never thought would happen. Or they're trying acrylics for the first time, and all of this kind of thing. It's giving you such a broad spectrum, and we've got the offer as well. For £25 a week, you can access all of these classes every week forever. So I know I've got a few students that do that, where they can do the Monday morning, the Monday evening, the acrylics, the Tuesday evening, the Wednesday drawing, the Thursday morning. Um, if you've got the one, you don't need the Thursday afternoon or the Friday afternoon, but then the calligraphy and all of that. So £25 a week is. He looks like a manic bunny. Is he a little bit wiry? Do you think? Could it be that? I don't know. But do try again. If it's not how you thought it would be. But imagine the pressure, those of you, imagine the pressure then for art teachers such as myself, where what would happen if I have a day where it just all goes wrong, and it doesn't look like a rabbit, or it does look like a demented hedgehog instead of a little bunny. It's quite scary, and sometimes I get a little jolt myself when something goes a little bit wrong. I mean, I can go into the whole, oh, I did this on purpose just so you could see how I could change it. But most of the time, when we say that, we don't mean it. We've messed up. Like on Blue Peter, where they mess up on their Christmas Advent candle, and they go, now obviously I'm having to rush this, but you've got more time to do this at home. Basically, that means that they've messed up. And there's no way back, so they have to go, oh well, of course you have more time to do this.
Rabbits are noticeable, are they notable, aren't they, for eye infections?
They do get eye infections, Jackie says, Janice, so so
look just more realistic,
maybe it's a baby rabbit with an eye infection. Could you do that? But once it's totally dry, you can go in and sort it out a little bit more. Because it's gouache. But I love working. This craft paper is great. I can't remember how much we sell it in a pack of. It's like craft card. It's really thick. Packs of 10 sheets for like £3 or £4. But it's a really good background. But that said, it isn't archival quality or artist quality. So I won't be able to sell this for £400. Well, I could if I wanted to. I'll still sell it. Oh, he's on medication. Well, that's it's a Frankenstein bunny. Couple of stitches, maybe a green wash. He'll be fine. A lightning bolt up his bottom. Do you know, that's one thing that we haven't got on here, and you can't see his tail, can you? Because he's sitting on it, which is a shame. But I've really enjoyed this lesson this morning, so... The animal painting classes are my favourites. I think they are, to be honest. But I have to be careful, don't I? I can't just do animals every week. So I try, when I'm planning, because obviously I'm planning the January to June classes now. I'm thinking, what animal can I insert here? What animal can I add now? Oh, I've already got one animal in a month. That's enough. Because I try to do roughly one animal a month, one sort of generic tree landscape a month, one maybe building oriented one a month. I mean, there's only 4 or 5 weeks in a month, so it's quite hard, to get something going like that. But I've really enjoyed doing this lesson, so thank you so much for your company. Yeah, your second version of your lavender fields, Louise, was absolutely gorgeous. Really like that. It was nice doing the pink background underneath, wasn't it, with that nice candy floss tint on all of the pictures. I really enjoyed that. So I'll be getting ready now for the next class in 2 hours' time, which is the ladybird on a forget-me-not, which is quite nice. I might do it much bigger, because if I did it life size, I'd basically finish in 30 seconds. So I'll do it much bigger and see how it looks. So thanks so much for your company this morning. I look forward to seeing your animals when you've finished in your own time. And take care. And I'm sure I'll see you at some point online over the next one. But don't forget, I'll tell you what's coming up. I haven't done that today. Obviously, I've said what's this afternoon. Friday afternoon is Kimber Edge in watercolours. Saturday morning is our live masterclass. free class on painting a crashing wave in the sea. That's 11 o'clock on Saturday morning. Monday morning's demo is a misty ploughed field in sepia in watercolour. Monday evening is then the ladybird on the forget-me-not. Tuesday afternoon, fiery sunset with billowing clouds. Tuesday evening is Crofter's Cottage in acrylics. Wednesday afternoon is building in Ditchley Park. I've got to try and remember what that reference image was to do. And then next Thursday morning is Paint Like a Brian Cook book cover illustration. And that I'm going to use gouache probably with that. And that's the, you know, the old Batsford book landscapes where the colours are all in block printed colours. I think you'll enjoy that. So thank you so much. Take care. See you soon. Bye bye.